episode of Green Jeans. I am your one co-host, Annika Van Rossum, joined by my other co-host,
Maya Van Rossum.
And if you couldn't tell by our names, we are a mother-daughter duo talking about activism through a generational lens.
Just to highlight that the shared last name is not because it came from a man. For those who have heard previous episodes, that's my last name. That's my last name, always been my last name. And Annika decided to take on that last name. Just wanted to share, didn't want people to presume that we're carrying some other man's name, some man that I married. Little feminism there, sorry.
It's just, so now everyone's filled in your brain. All right, so that wasn't our fact check. Mom, do you have a fact check for us this week?
I do have a fact check. Now, I'm not sure if we already checked this fact, but this is a fact that's worthy of rechecking, even if we already checked it. So many people think that if they have a lawn, that they have an environmentally friendly landscape in their front yard or their backyard. And the fact check is that is not true. Lawns are actually very bad environmentally. They don't provide any habitat, first off, right? They're just a monoculture that takes up space and doesn't give food or habitat or any sort of nurturing to the natural environment. Second off, they become a recipient of a lot of stuff that people like to put on them, things like herbicides and fertilizer, things that when it then rains, wash off the landscape and get washed into our local waterways, causing pollution. And actually, when it comes to rainfall runoff, stormwater runoff, depending on how steeped into environmental issues you are. But think about it this way, right? When it rains, the rain hits the landscape. And if you are in a forest, that rain soaks into the ground. If that rain falls onto your lawn, it's almost the same as hitting a pavement, and it does not actually soak into the ecosystem, but it actually runs off down into the street, which puts it into the storm drain, or perhaps via a detention basin first, but ultimately gets piped into the local stream that then dumps it on your downstream neighbor, carrying all of that pollution, but also increasing the volume of water that's getting directly dumped into a local stream, a volume of water that naturally would have been soaked into the soil. What does that mean? That means more flooding, more flood damages, more erosion, more damage for the stream and for your downstream neighbors. So lawns are actually not good. What you should do is figure out what part of your lawn in your front yard, your backyard, or your side yard do you actually use for something other than just mowing, maybe for sunbathing, maybe or for your kids to play, and keep that portion of your property lawn. And then restore the rest of that landscape with native trees and shrubs and flowering plants. You'll not only reduce the amount of runoff, rainfall runoff, stormwater runoff that would come off of your landscape, and you're actually instead soaking that water into the soil, which will restore the aquifer, which is good for drinking water supplies and also for cleansing pollution. But you will be creating great food and habitat for local wildlife who desperately need it, especially in these times of fast urbanizing and suburbanizing of our areas, which also removes food and habitat for them. But you'll also be creating a beautiful scenery for yourself. You'll be giving yourself a little bit of a buffer between your neighbors and the road and other noise-making spaces. So you'll be making it a little bit more peaceful in your home. And actually, you'll be increasing the market value of your home. It is demonstrated time and time again that the fair market value of property that's is nearby or has on it healthy natural landscapes, that the market value actually can go up by 6 to 15%, if not more. So it's good all the way around, ecologically, economically, for your health, for your safety, for your sanity, for beauty, and for Mother Earth, who needs our loving care. Fact check.
Gotcha. Good. Oh my gosh, that was good. Yeah, I don't think people think about that enough. I feel like everyone's like a nice manicured lawn with 1 or 2 tasteful trees or shrubs, which I always think is like actually kind of gross and kind of boring. Like I really like our yard with our native plants everywhere and how it's just like a little pathway to walk through. And I remember even as a kid, Oma just had that little bit of grass out front where I would like sit, and it was just a nice little bit. And then the whole rest of her yard was this beautiful forest with little trails that I would just like run through. And I always thought that was so much more beautiful than just like a plain lawn. If you want to be constantly playing big sports, like go to your local park and do that. I don't know, like big grass.
And actually having access to natural landscapes, large and small, is also really important for the development of children, now that you bring it up. First off, there's a lot of research to show that simply kids being able to look out of a classroom window and see a tree versus just seeing buildings and cement actually increases their capacity to learn. There's also a lot of scientific research that shows how being able to play in and around nature, climb trees, or it teaches children self-assurance. It actually also helps strengthens their body. It helps them learn balance. I mean, it just, in so many ways, it nurtures every aspect of their being. There's a really, really great book, Last Child in the Woods, that I really encourage people to read. It's really inspiring and interesting, and really proves the point that nature is critically important for every aspect of our lives, particularly children, who increasingly are having less and less and less natural spaces and places to play. And if you can make your backyard or your front yard or your side yard, or all three of them, a natural space and place for your kids to play, and neighbors' kids to play, grandkids to play, the kids of neighbors, if you don't have your own kids to play, I mean, you are really giving back in so many ways to the quality of the lives of the children in your community, again, as well as to yourself and to nature. So it's just a really wonderful thing to do. And it's a wonderful way to pass the time when you're out there gardening in the good weather. So
I love that. So speaking of getting people outside, I'm super excited to introduce this week's guests. So we have Lukey and Kubi, who are two twins, and they run this whole operation adventure thing. It's hard to explain. It's just really cool, but it's called Warn the West. So Lukey and Kubi are out in Utah right now, and they do paragliding. And they're two twins, and they do some amazing artwork. And they're going to come on and talk to us actually about how climate change has affected their sport and what they've been seeing in their time out there. And it's very cool. I'm very excited. Lukey and I actually went to college together, and it's been really interesting to see how he went from studying in a classroom to now really just kind of being out in the world. And I think it shows too that no matter where you start with your education or your life path, you can always change. And it seems like he and Kubi are doing really great things. So I'm going to bring them on now. So we're going to.
But just before you do, I just really, really want to say I'm really excited to meet them, because you've talked about their evolution, both in terms of their sport as people, but also in terms of their environmental awareness. So I think it's really exciting to have this new lens through which we can think about and talk about the power of the environment. And I think it really proves the point that environmental degradation harms all of us, or impacts all of us. And it also proves the point that you and I have said so many times: it doesn't care what your interest is, what your education is, or what brings you to the table. We all have something to contribute to environmental protection. So it's going to be interesting to see how they take their interest and their talent in this sport and bring it to environmental protection. So I just wanted to say that. I'm sure I'll say it again when they're on, but I wanted to say that to you, Annika, because I thought that this set of guests was really exciting and really interesting, and I really love it. So kudos to you for thinking of it.
I'm so excited. And I think too, I'll probably say it again when they get on, but I think this is a realm of environmental degradation and the effects of climate change that nobody really thinks about. Like, you wouldn't even think about it. So I think they're going to bring a perspective that not many people are aware of or would get a chance to hear about. So with that.
Hey guys. Hello.
Hi,
hey.
Lukey and Kubi. So I just gave a little primer on what you guys are up to. But so, you know me, I'm Annika, and this is of course my mom, Maya. But do you guys want to give us a little intro about who you are and what you're doing?
Absolutely. So we're Lukey and Kubi Jackson, and we're 24 years old, and we kind of spend our time, focusing on art, flying paragliders as pilots, and just kind of living these nomadic 21st century lifestyles these days.
We live in a 1984 trailer, and currently we're based out of Salt Lake City, but we really like to move around the whole American West and just visit different flying sites and,
Have a ball,
Yeah.
have a good time and,
live a life we enjoy living.
So I want to encourage people to take a look at the video, because you guys have a really beautiful landscape, which is an art landscape behind you. And I want to encourage people to, again, get online and look at this. But can you tell us a little bit about what this beautiful art is that's behind you?
So this is actually a really interesting piece. And it's kind of from a distant time in our life, because it was when we still lived, right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And, we kind of had these more normal lifestyles. And we painted this actually as a table. So it was once our living room table. And as you can see, there's just a beautiful mountain landscape. And then kind of behind me, we have this beautiful Utah desert.
And at the time, we were just trying to paint this beautiful imaginary landscape. And now looking back at it, it pretty much looks exactly like Utah.
we painted Utah before we even knew that, we would kind of be living out here. So it's a good piece and it's nice and big. And we did it in oil paint. So I've always loved watching Bob Ross and his videos, and all these techniques I kind of got straight from him. And if you've never watched The Joy of Painting by Bob Ross, I would highly recommend it. Even if you don't have a painting background, the man is really a magician with the paintbrush. So that's a little background about the piece.
And you guys also, your trailer that you guys live in, you guys painted that yourself too.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really cool. So your Instagram, right, is Warren the West.
Warren.the.west.
Okay, there we
Warren
go.
the West.
Everyone should go look at your trailer. I think when you guys first posted it, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever when you guys redid that.
It was really amazing, because when we got it, it was an old hunting cabin, and it's from the 80s. It was really old and decrepit, and we bought it for really cheap, and we kind of turned it into the largest art project we've ever done. And we came from Boston and living inside, so we didn't have a lot of these handyman or basic homeowner skills.
And we made so many mistakes. We still make mistakes on a daily basis, but growing up in the suburbs, it doesn't really prepare you for what's super common out here, which is people kind of living in their trailers, their vans, their vehicles. And ever since COVID kind of happened too, it's kind of gained a really big spotlight, and it's become even more socially acceptable. Lots of people now have these remote jobs, and they've started traveling all around or living in different spaces. And, so we're friends with a variety of people, some with really good jobs and careers who still, still make it work living in their setups, and that's the way they prefer it. Or, the dirt poor, makes no money, but, loves life and loves being outside and, going on new adventures. And so
really the trailer enabled us to enter this sort of lifestyle, and we've been living it for 2 years, and it's absolutely changed our lives for the better.
I would recommend it if anyone's ever thought about it. And, sometimes people start out as weekend warriors and, they build their vehicle and, they just use it on the weekends, and, that's fantastic. But some people will start that, and then they'll be like, oh no, I gotta live in this thing full time. And then that leads to people not even being comfortable living in full-size houses anymore. People kind of lose that,
they get rid of a lot of their stuff, and they get more grounded. And if you've been living inside for a really long time, you just accumulate stuff naturally, even if you don't want to. You can't help it. So people enjoy downsizing. People enjoy building their own homes from scratch, whether it's a school bus or a Sprinter van or a trailer. It's gives a lot of people a lot of freedom and a lot of power to really control their own small tiny home.
Yeah, definitely an empowering experience, but lots
Very
of toil
cool.
and other things involved in it as well, but all part of the good, general learning experience. And these aren't things that you kind of learn in college or even learn from your parents. So it's been a new area for us, and we've been loving it.
Well, so what I was just saying to my mom actually was, so Lukey, obviously you and I went to college together, and how I don't think I ever had conversations with you. You were environmental science major,
Yeah,
right?
environmental science.
And I could have I always knew you were very adventurous, but I could never have pictured that this is where you would have ended up. And obviously I got to talk to Kubi a little bit whenever he came to visit. But so I think people would be really interested to know, for both of you, what was the transition and what kind of inspired the move from, I feel the educational track that has been pushed so hard on our generation to get a degree and get a job and that, and then to just like radically do this. So like what happened, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so from the beginning, so we are first generation Americans, and our parents came here. They escaped from communist Czechoslovakia in the late 80s, early 90s, and they ended up getting asylum and coming to the United States. And
it's a wild story. We could have a whole podcast about their stories,
but they were incredibly hardworking, like the classic American dream hardworking immigrants, and they would work 3 jobs each or whatever, really did whatever they could to allow us to have a better life. And they really taught us from the beginning that even when the odds are stacked against you, even when you don't have anything, that with hard work and determination, you can actually accomplish not only like what you want, but your wildest dreams, something that you would never think come true.
But the expectation, it was always college. There was no other options. It was like, you guys are gonna get A's, maybe 1 or 2 B's is acceptable, but like you're going to college, you're gonna get scholarships.
Come home from school, homework right away, right? Like,
and that's one of the best traits that we kind of have, is that we like to get our work done like right as soon as possible. And
so they really instilled this hard work ethic in us. And we grew up outside of Boston, where they have really good public schools. So we went to a really great public school, and then we ended up parting ways and going to different colleges. I ended up majoring in biology, and Lukey ended up doing
environmental science. And so we actually really enjoyed these careers, and we were always super interested in science. And we got our degrees, and we ended up within a few months that we actually had like really good jobs and good placement in like the Boston biotech scene. And if you guys don't know, Boston, I think, has the largest number of science companies, in this one small area.
Oh, wow.
So I was employed as a research scientist, and I was always really fascinated about neuroscience. So my few jobs that I had were all specialized on rare neurodegenerative diseases, which was, insanely interesting, very niche. All these orphan diseases that normally, wouldn't get any attention or funding, but they were designated as, they affect this small amount of population, so they would get extra funding. So there was these big companies, and they're all looking at these different rare diseases, and I was a scientist. I would do the experiments, the nitty and gritty on the animal tissues and brains, and it was
we're gonna stop going down that path. We really like you, Kumi. We don't want to talk about animal testing.
And I was like an environmental science major. And so what career path I went down was kind of environmental health and safety. So I was working in these same labs that Kubi was a scientist in. And I was kind of responsible for like the safety and the permitting part of how these massive labs operate. And we both had the experience of being, working for these, billion-dollar companies, and they would have, 7 buildings in, this compound. They would have 15 stories of just labs on labs on labs. And it was incredible to see what the largest biotech companies are up to. And they have a lot of machines, and they have a lot of scientists, and, and they need lots of people to kind of help with the safety. And, when scientists are using chemicals, they're just doing their experiment, they're following procedures, and rarely ever do they actually think about their own safety. And so there's this whole group of people who have now a career in assisting, labs and scientists operate legally, safely, and effectively. And so even though we had different majors, they were both science related, we actually ended up working very closely together, which was, kind of funny.
We would have like coworkers who would recognize me, who worked with me.
Yeah.
And then you saw an ad for paragliding one day, and you're like, let's just go do it. What's the break free point?
Yeah, the break free point was that 3 days after we graduated, we went to Utah and we attended a paragliding school, and it changed our lives. So we lived out here in Utah in tents, and we met all these wonderful people who were all entrepreneurs, and they made it work their own way.
And we had researched, a few different air sports. We didn't know exactly what we wanted to get into, and for many people, air sports is kind of this big taboo subject where it's all grouped in together. No one really knows anything about it, and everyone knows it's dangerous. And most of those things are true, but they don't deserve to be all grouped in together. So we researched skydiving, hang gliding, paragliding, and these different variations of the sport. And we came to the conclusion that paragliding was going to be the one for us. And so
it's the safest, it's the slowest moving aircraft. You just move 20 miles an hour.
The slowest moving aircraft on Earth.
But isn't it like, as somebody who's afraid of heights,
Yeah.
right? Like, how on earth, I don't know. I don't know if the right word is, did you make that first jump or whatever it is off the edge of the cliff to paraglide? Because that would just be horrifyingly terrifying for me. Like, how on earth did you do that?
I won't lie. On the first day, they got you in the air by yourself. Yeah. But, you know, it's a small hill. It's a gentle hill, you know, nothing too big. And, you know, the first few days, you know, you're taking off, you know, from 10, 15 feet from the bottom. So you may take off, but you're going to be in the air for 1 to 2 seconds. You know, you're going to be 5 feet off the ground. And so that's kind of like the braking, you know, that's the point that kind of gets you into it. And, you know, you're so close to the ground, you're not really afraid of those heights. And actually what's safer in paragliding is when you get kind of further away from the ground. And so lots of pilots like to fly really high up in the air. And actually when you're flying closer to terrain and to the ground is actually where you experience danger. So it's actually safer to be up and, you know, you kind of have the trust builds in your skills and in the equipment. And so for pretty much all air sports, it's super important that you attend a school and, you know, not that you go on Wikipedia, teach yourself, you know, like, oh, my buddy's going to teach me, like, that's not okay. And people do it and they have successful careers doing it that way too. But it introduces a level of risk that pretty much your average person should not be involved in. So
so we had this amazing experience out in Utah right after we graduated. We were out here a month and then we ended up coming back to Boston and settling down. We moved into an apartment in the city and we both got these amazing jobs and we just started plugging away, working hard, and there were things we were interested in. So it was great. And then, you know, we're doing it for a few months, some more. And then COVID ended up, you know, starting to creep in and things kind of started changing a lot in the workforce and different things like that.
And we were cool to see those changes that, you know, our science biotech companies actually implemented after that. And for both of them, they pretty much halted everything that they were working on. And they were like, you know what, like we have to focus all of our time, attention. Either it was working on the vaccine or working on the antibody tests or working, you know, on the hundreds of other kind of subsects. And
it ended up just feeling a little disingenuous because all these companies were now, you know, focused on this one thing. Obviously, it's an enormous problem, but they were doing it more for the publicity, for the money.
Yeah, I think definitely
not for the right reasons, because these weren't companies that made vaccines, right? They did a lot of stuff, but they weren't specialized in that. So it kind of turned us off from the whole thing. We ended up being, we were both classified as essential workers. So while everyone got to stay home, we were still, you know, taking the public transportation to work.
Boston in labs, you know, either doing experiments or facilitating these experiments. And it kind of gave us a different perspective on it because, I mean, we were just, you know, as I'm sure lots of people have had personal stories and have been involved with it, you know, we kind of had this unique little view into it. And we decided that, you know, we had learned to fly earlier last summer. It had been about a year. And we were like, you know what, like, this isn't going to do it for us. And, you know,
can I just ask a quick question? So when Kubi, when you were describing your areas of interest, you were talking about all those, as you said, those weird illnesses that don't usually get researched. And when you were saying that, I was exactly thinking, oh, I bet he was really interested when COVID came, because isn't that kind of illness? So it's kind of interesting that maybe yes, but maybe no.
Under normal circumstances, probably yes. It would have been really good, but just you know, just the way that everyone's lives were kind of altered as a result of it, and just the precautions that were now normal that you needed to take to protect yourself and to protect other people. Sometimes they got a little bit extreme in the workplace, like one person from each department was only allowed to be there at a time. So it was kind of, we had gotten new jobs and I hadn't been trained and I was the only one allowed from my department in the lab. And I was like, this is not going to work. Like I need a little bit more than this to do this really complicated and serious job. So we ended up just kind of falling out of love with it. And
but you know, we grew up in the suburbs and on the East Coast, and you know, we kind of, as many people do living on the East Coast, you have this dream of the mountains and, you know, being a skier and a climber and, this, I mean, I can't describe the feeling, but I think many people through the generations have felt this feeling of wanting to go out and explore, a new area and these mountains and this beautiful thing. And so we kind of always had that in our mind. And then 3 days after we graduated, we go to Utah and we learn to fly, and we kind of see it with our own eyes. And, then we return back to the East Coast for 1 year. And we just realized that, we had seen how other people were making it work. And, everyone that's kind of in our generation, we were told it was college, and college, it works for a lot of people, and it worked for us, and we would have had fruitful careers in the sciences. But, our parents had always encouraged us that we could always, we could be whoever we wanted. We could overcome, whatever was against us. And, once we got that taste of flying, it
really empowered us.
It
if
really
you
empowered
can
us.
fly like a bird, and I mean, it's a incredible feeling. Then we realized that we could probably pursue some of our other dreams and really, put in that hard work from our parents and see if we can could make something of ourselves.
And so we quit our jobs. We're like, no more. It's COVID, and we're like, listen, like it's like we're ready to open up a new chapter in our lives. And so we moved to Utah, and when we packed up some cars, and moved is a loose term. We were living in tents for a few months, and we were kind of going through this honeymoon period. We made this big change in our life, and we were honestly planning of getting biotech careers here in Salt Lake City, and there's a pretty good biotech industry here. And after a few months, we were kind of at this crossroad of, do we get real and, settle back down into these careers that we went to college for. And we had just been so empowered by everything, and people had been so supportive and encouraging of us. We were like, you know what, let's try something else. And then we're like, well, if we're going to go and, forge our own path, then it might as well be like the best, funnest, the best case scenario, like the dream. So
Yeah.
we decided to try to literally, do what we always wanted to do. And that's turned into us pretty much two things: making art. We absolutely love making art. And what we love even more is now that we can kind of turn it into a business, and, instead of just drawing for fun and, making art for free, people start to actually see value in, the stuff that you create. And then by them being able, to pay you for your time and for your art, that enables us to make more art and to
get better at it mainly.
Very
And
cool.
it's a really great experience. But ultimately, it's exactly what we wanted to do. So it was kind of a blessing when no jobs, no companies here gave us the time of day, despite us being very qualified. So that made us even more a little resentful towards the whole thing.
Well, so I want everyone to hear about your art and like how everyone can get all of that. But before we get to that, we were talking earlier about how much you guys are enjoying paragliding, and my mom and I are environmental activists, and you guys have a passion for the environment. But so what has it been like? We're in Code Red for Humanity for Climate, and you guys said that you'd noticed some differences in your sport. You have a mentor who you've been talking to about how climate change has really had an effect on paragliding. And I was just saying how I'm so excited to have you guys on, because I feel like it's something people don't think about, like that it wouldn't affect
pilots,
it.
even pilots don't really think about it. And
Yeah.
so we were just lucky to, meet a crazy person, and he kind of passed down his knowledge to us. And we'll just kind of get into a brief story around it, and then we'll kind of meander to the facts of the situation. And so one of the things we do, we live in a trailer, is that we love traveling around, and we travel around different parts of the country, specifically to new paragliding and flying sites. And at those flying sites, you fly a new site, every day is different, every site's different. And so by flying different sites, being exposed to new situations, you actually learn a lot. And then, we're members of the community. So, and, we create art, and we do things related to our art relating to paragliding. So by meeting new people and making new connections, it's super powerful and beneficial for us. And so we were on a trip, and we were heading up north, and we ended up in Idaho. And we had never been to Idaho before. It was our first time in the state. And we had heard of this beautiful place in Arco, Idaho. And it's about a town of 1,000 people. And, we're from the city, but we love being out in like the middle of nowhere. It's a really special place.
And so we end up going to this town called Arco, Idaho. It's like really small, not a lot of people know about it. And when we're there, we just start to figure out things about this place. Like, this town was the first town in the whole world to be powered by nuclear energy in 1955. It was Arco, they used to call it Atomic City. So it was like
Oh wow.
they powered a light bulb for a few hours and they got that designation.
And so even today, when you drive, through the town, they have all these signs saying, it was the first nuclear powered town. And so it was like, a gift to the world. It showed the whole world what you could do with nuclear power. And then what we found out was about 10, 11 years later, in 1961, they actually had a enormous nuclear meltdown,
which was totally covered up. It's actually the only US's like only nuclear related fatalities happened in Arco, Idaho.
And it was the first one in the world, the first nuclear fatality. And the only
wow.
one in the US.
So like, there's not a lot written about it. Like we all had science backgrounds and we had never heard of this place.
We're like, that's the type of stuff we're interested in researching. And we had never heard of this case before. And we were in this town. So we started doing more digging. And turns out there's this crazy backstory.
None of the locals will talk to you about it. Everyone downplays it, but there was, there's 3 people working at this nuclear power plant, and unfortunately they weren't the best or the brightest of that Idaho had to offer. And they had a lot of arguments with each other.
Employees were being unfaithful with each other's wives, and it like reached a boiling point. And supposedly,
only in Idaho.
The story is that one day, one of these employees came in and
was really upset.
And then his wife came in and said that all this had been going down, and that he went to the nuclear core and he actually pulled out one of the reactor rods. And it caused an explosion that killed all of them.
Everyone died,
and
that's what nuclear power will do to you. Make you crazy.
And like for this to be the first power plant, on Earth to to be powering electricity and stuff like that, it was this like shining new gem of innovation. And somehow behind the scenes there was like total incompetence going down. And they don't know exactly what happened that final day, but they know that the conduct of their employees, and it wasn't very good. They were up to things that they should have not been up to. And
ultimately it lasted less than 10 years, and it went from a shining example to another example of the dangers of nuclear and how you shouldn't run anything. So that was a little background on Arco, Idaho. Really a beautiful place, but we went there to paraglide. They have the Lost River Range there, which is beautiful. It has 13, I believe, out of 15 Idaho's tallest peaks.
So it's just a gorgeous mountain range. And
there we met this wonderful person. His name is John Kangas. Shout out to Kangas. He's a great guy. And he'd been a weatherman, and he'd really been watching the weather there for, I think, like a little bit over 20 years.
Yeah. And he's been an aviator his whole life. He's flown like every sort of plane you can imagine, from like the commercial planes with people to, ultralight sailplanes and hang gliders. And even 2 years ago at the ripe age of, in his 60s, he decided to pick up paragliding, the sport that we currently have. And so, and he had just been, he had loved flying and he had loved the air. And so he had been watching it. And King Mountain, this one mountain in this range, has a long history of hang gliding flying. And so they used to have competitions there, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, even more recently than that. But it had been this like, it wasn't a hidden gem, but it was this widely known, amazing flying site.
And then it kind of faded into obscurity.
But first he had made a bet, and he said, I'm going to buy a piece of land here. And he opened up his own airfield, and all he wants to do is just promote flying and bring as many people to the site. And he thought that King Mountain was like the best big mountain flying site in America. And he did that through all of his weather models and how long he had been observing it for. So, he buys a piece of land there. And now 20 years later,
the weather has drastically changed since its glory days. So he was able to give us some really good insights.
And we were there for about a month, just living on his property, flying around, and then helping him actually
farm work,
helping him construct the airfield. It was this, this great positive experience. And one of the things that we noticed, and one of the main points that he addressed of how paragliding and this big mountain flying is being affected
by climate change
is through forest fires. And so
wow,
I'm sure people are pretty hip to people kind of understand. Maybe not people don't understand, but I guess people have been exposed to hearing about fires more and more recently. I'm sure in these last 5-10 years.
Every year is the worst fire season of the year, and then you have that every year for a few years.
And then living out west for the last 2 years, we've actually been able to experience the smoke during the summers for these last 2 summers. And
the fires from California or from Idaho or the Northwest, and it's really,
yeah, it's gross.
it's
It's
gross.
scary.
It's
Well, there
really
was like I think it was this last fall, there was that huge fire out in California. And I was still in Vermont, and the sky was like that weird foggy red and all that. And it was all the smoke from all the way across the country, all the way in Vermont. And that was like a horrifying experience. I just like had never experienced that.
Yeah. Well, if you live out west here,
It
unfortunately,
is.
it's become a reality, and it's like
every summer now.
a consistent thing. And Utah doesn't even really, Utah burns sometimes, but the neighboring states, especially California, like we get everyone's smoke. We get our own smoke too from Utah. But and so on top of the smoke being super unhealthy, you're breathing in these particulates, the forests are burning. It actually impacts the conditions of flying. And so just to give a little background, so when you fly at King Mountain, the Lost River Range, you're doing a certain type of flying, and it's called cross-country flying. And the goal of cross-country flying is that you take off, and instead of just flying in one area and landing, your goal is to take off, and it's to actually fly across a mountain range
as far as you possibly can.
And you're going for distance. And so you find these rising columns of warm air called thermals, and they just you fly in a circle, and it just takes you up and up and up, and then it ends, and then you fly along the range and you find the next one. And it's this like amazing game of kind of chess or Monopoly or whatever you want to call it, like with the earth, because
you can't see the air.
The air is like
Wow,
invisible, and we have some tools that kind of give us these helpful beeps to indicate if we're in rising air or sinking air. And it's just it's one of the people strive, when they learn to paraglide, they're like, what, once I get all my skills in check, like this is the area I want to focus on. And people these days fly 100, 200 miles, people 300 miles.
Yeah.
People will be in the air for 9 to 10 hours flying these unbelievable distances, and they have oxygen in
18,000 feet.
They're at 18,000
yeah.
feet, and like they're going for it, like they're barely humans at that point. And so King Mountain and the Lost River Range is really famous for these sorts of conditions, and so pilots traveled there specifically so they could fly cross country.
But with all the smoke recently, so I guess normally the sun gives out like 1,000 watts per square meter to the earth, something like that. When you have this dense smoke cover, it can reduce that 1,000 watts per square meter to, let's say, 500 or maybe even 300, 200, and you just have much less sunlight coming down. And
so it means in the mornings too, like it takes longer for the earth to heat up. So pilots are used to flying at certain specific times that enable them to seize the conditions of the day. And when there's smoke and stuff, you kind of have to delay your takeoff by a few hours. And so then you're kind of flying later in the day. You have less time to actually, fly a big distance.
The thermals are less strong. The visibility is decreased. You're like, you can go up 10,000 feet and the smoke is still there.
Yeah,
you can't escape it.
And then you look down below and like, you can't even see the valley that you took off from. Like it's
Wow.
all smoke. And then, one of the beauties of flying these ultralight aircraft is at sunset, there's this like magical phenomenon that happens. And it's, people refer to it as a glass off. And it's kind of like,
all the energy that's been building up throughout the day,
all the heat
stored in the ground releases, and it's calm and everything's
and lifty and
it's
gentle.
perfect,
And, people talk about it as like this, this beautiful unicorn, and only some have experienced it. But when there's smoke out, once that sun gets lower and lower on the horizon, I guess the smoke starts dissipating that energy quickly. And so instead of having a casual, beautiful afternoon glass off, it just shuts off instantly. And we're flying this range, we're flying, and we're looking at the time, and we're like, it's gonna get, the sun's gonna set, we have to land, but you don't even have to make that decision, because the second that sun goes past the horizon,
the winds start blowing down the hill.
The winds start blowing down the hill.
Yeah.
The thermals kick off, and you're just like deposited, onto the ground.
Oh wow! And so you go, Mom.
No, I just had a question. So a little bit of an aside, but you were just talking about looking down and seeing the landscape. So on those positive days when you don't have the smoke and you can actually see it, I'm just wondering what that experience is like to be out there free and in the air, not in a plane tube, but free and in the air, to actually look down on the beauty of nature. And how does that compare to if you end up in a spot where you look down and you see a whole bunch of shitty houses? Maybe you don't go to those places. So just like wondering what that whole experience is like.
Yep. So like from legally we can go up to 18,000 feet. So when you're cruising at 18,000 feet, even the tallest mountains that, go to 10, 11,
Are these
12
just
are,
tiny little things below you?
and it's insane because, from the ground, obviously you can never have that perspective, and you see them more as ranges and as like, big movements of rock and
Yeah.
stone as opposed to these individual towering things. And it's really incredible. It's hard to describe.
You're right though. It is one of the most amazing parts of the sport, and we're up there, and our paragliders are made of like thin plastic. We're
It's like a
talking
plastic bag.
it's a wing, it's similar to a plane wing, just it's not sturdy. It's made of plastic, and you have to physically inflate it, and then you're kind of sitting in this harness that's just like some cloth, and so you have almost nothing. You have a helmet on, so you have this sort of experience, especially as you get higher and higher. Some people actually get kind of freaked out because they see that they're so far above the ground. You can, besides being a little oxygen deprived, which is a serious thing for, pilots who fly long distances. It's just an incredible feeling, but it's way cold up there too.
Yeah.
So, you'll be like, wow, this is amazing. And then, depending on the day, like it can be well below freezing, and, of course, all the wind chill and stuff. And sometimes it can be scary getting that high because as you grow in elevation and you get higher and higher, these thermals, they start off from these small little points at the ground because they originate from the earth, and then they expand into these ginormous funnels. So, into clouds. That's where the thermals end. So towards the tops of these thermals, you can be in some very strong lift. And you might not even want to be going up anymore. And so it can be a real challenge. We have these huge gliders. They're meant to go up. And sometimes when you're trying to go down, it can be a little challenging, especially when you're at 18,000 feet, like you're freezing cold, like you're going up, up and up, your vario's beeping, beep, 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 beep. And you're like, I need to get out of here. Like I'm not meant to be here right now. Like it's way too high. And then you get lower and you land and you have this whole experience. And yeah. And then one day you go out and you're flying and you kind of see all this smoke. And you're like, wow, like, what, like that really, that really shouldn't be there. And you can just see it kind of poisoning every animal and plant. Like I'm sure forest fire smoke is not really good for any living creature. And so it kind of, it gives you a sense of appreciation for, the earth, for the sky, for the air. And when you fly over an area that's been totally burnt out, or as you mentioned, when you fly over a city, you get your whole different set of stimuluses and visuals. It can be an amazing feeling. Here in Salt Lake City, you kind of fly the mountain range and everyone lives right at the base of the mountains, like, a whole city. And, when we're flying here in Utah, like you land at, high schools, churches. So like, you're flying to the landing zone, and like you're flying over houses, power cables, like whole communities.
Oh man.
And you'll see them, they'll look up, and it's common to see it in Utah, but sometimes these people are like, what is going to happen? Like, where are these people going to land? And, then we make a beautiful pass. So we land, in a nice field. And that's a very unique experience too. But, flying in Idaho on the Lost River Range, like there's nothing out there. It's just open land,
Wow.
big mounds, your occasional farm. And so that obviously leads to a different experience, but both very fun.
And it seems like, oh, go ahead, Kubi. No.
You got it.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like, I think Lukey too, when you're just talking about like everything getting poisoned, and I think it makes me so sad to hear, because whenever you guys post stuff, I'm so jealous, because I'm also like, wow, you're getting this actual like very unique special moment with nature that not many people get to experience, either because of like fear of heights or access to it, whatever. And you guys get this unique experience, and I would feel like almost this moment of like serenity and connection with nature that I think, those of us that stand up for the earth like really live for. And it makes me so sad to hear that like things like climate change are diminishing that and taking it away. And you guys were saying too that it seems like younger pilots don't even know, that this is not normal, that it's more the older pilots are kind of seeing what's happening.
Yep. So you could say all pilots, that no one sees as it's just our friend has this very unique perspective. But because
pilots we look at like the forecast, we see what's going on, and then in the moment we have to deal with all this information while we're flying. And we're flying cross country, it's as younger, newer pilots into the thing, it's overwhelming at times. There's so much to process. And once you practice processing this information over and over again, you can then focus on other things, but it makes you kind of focus in on the moment. And so pilots don't necessarily look at these long-term impacts. They're worried about the weather today, tomorrow, a few days from now, and then in the very moment. So pilots have a more acute awareness of the weather, and they don't realize the big things. And another way that climate change has significantly impacted paragliding is kind of the variance in the jet stream. And our buddy Kangas he went into detail about we're kind of just sharing some of the things that he taught us.
But so you're right, the jet stream is this huge column of air that moves from the west to east. In the northern hemisphere, it's usually above Canada / the top of North America.
And it kind of just transfers heat, from the warmer parts of the globe to the cooler parts. And it's one of these huge global systems. And it obviously, it's not just the weather, it impacts everything from flooding to drought to temperatures.
Wow.
And
so recently, they have all these amazing weather models and weather predictions. So there's sites where you can actually look at the jet stream, and you have to look a few miles up, and you can just see how this thing is moving. And traditionally, it moves more like a normal, like a rapid or fast moving stream. It's kind of straight. Maybe it has a few ups and downs, but not really. But recently, or in the past years, there's been a change in the jet stream. It's starting to, I guess you could say, it's starting to slow down. And as it slows down,
it starts to like meander around,
like like a river where you see pictures in Iceland, and it's all spread out, or it goes up and down. So what was traditionally kind of like this predictable, reliable thing that would control global weather patterns is now sometimes should be in Canada, it's actually down at the equator.
Oh, wow.
And this has some super profound impacts on the weather, because this is like really big picture stuff.
And like one example was, I think earlier last summer, I think places in northern Canada had temperatures over 100 degrees, and they attributed that to
a heat dome.
A heat dome, but it was kind of like the jet stream had directly caused a northern area of Canada to have temperatures over 100 degrees.
The jet stream meandered down, and then it left this area by Canada and like Washington, that area. And they had an insane amount of heat. And the issue is that these are blocking movements. So because it's moving slower, it's no longer going there. Suddenly you just have this area where, either there's a lot of rain, they call it a rain dome, or you have this heat dome.
And it's kind of this like stable air, and it just sits there.
And it doesn't really change. So they had these crazy temperatures in Canada as a result of the jet stream kind of skipping.
But then again, like we even noticed it this week, we kind of look at these models now because we're interested in them, and you can check them on a daily basis, and you kind of see this global weather pattern. But just this week, the jet stream kind of turned down, and it went right past Utah. And these last few days, it's been freezing temperatures. Like it hasn't been above freezing.
It snowed feet.
Yeah, it's been like really cold, and it's been a kind of a mild winter before this. And we just look at that graph, and you see that loop going down like this, and that cold air coming from the north is just coming right through Utah.
But so the jet stream with it brings fronts. So it brings like cold fronts, warm fronts.
Yeah, low pressure and high pressure systems.
And these systems are really important in resetting the weather, because the flying is the best right after a front has moved in and the air is cold. It's clear, there's no smoke, and then the sun heats it up, and then you have this big contrast between hot rising air, and then the ambient air is much cooler. And as the days go on, the ambient air gets warmer and warmer and warmer till there's not a big difference.
And the bigger difference, if your thermal is nice and warm and your ambient air is cool, then the thermal is going to have more energy, more power. You're going to be able to go higher. It's going to be easier to fly. And the jet stream kind of delivers. It's pretty much like, you can think of a low pressure system just as like a storm moving through. And then right after the storm, everything is clear, still and cold. And as Kubi said, the sun comes out, heats it up. And those days right after those low pressure systems are some of the best big mountain cross country flying days because of how friendly the thermals are. And so then with the jet stream kind of meandering around and like
slowing down and maybe
not
being in the traditional places where it should be this time of year, it leads to less of these fronts and these systems moving through and resetting the weather. So it could blow the smoke out too, which it leaves it nice and beautiful. or just resets the temperature so things can be cold and can start working again. So, you know,
This is just like so friggin' fascinating. I am just like, I am like learning so much. This is like really, besides the fact being scared to death for the two of you.
I say, wait, she and I have to
Being up there.
road trip back from New Mexico. So maybe I'll just steer her out to Utah real quick and you guys can get her out flying.
I would highly recommend it. And if you want to experience the joy of free flight, getting on a tandem with a professional is like the best way to start. You know, someone has their tandem rating and, you know, they fly whoever you want around. And that's like the best way to just experience it for the first time.
from a safe, competent pilot.
No, the only way I would experience it is from the ground waving.
Yeah.
Saying,
She did though.
Hi, Lukey and Kubi. Great to see you up there. And you know what the interesting thing is, you're talking about it being so cold because of the jet stream,
Yeah.
which, by the way, super fascinating. I just learned so much. But so my husband and my son were just up in Canada for a hockey tournament, and we had to go out and buy my husband like a super special warm coat because he's never cold, but he's like, well, but maybe I better have a warm coat because I'm gonna be up in Canada. And I think like the temperatures were like 60 degrees or whatever. So sounds like the cold came down to you rather than staying up in Canada with them.
Yeah, you're right.
It was really cold here in New Mexico like the last 2 days, and then today it's like back up to 50, which everybody here too has been like, this is way too hot, which, you know, being from the East Coast, I was like, oh, I guess I always thought it would be warmer. But it's just like so crazy. Yeah. And I'm just listening to you guys. It's like so fascinating to hear. Yeah.
But I also we do want to hear about your art, because I'm also, as I'm watching, like, besides the fact that you did that beautiful art behind you, I want to know whether or not, you have to be honest, whether it was intentional that you're each color coordinated with the portion of the art behind you. It's like so cool.
No,
was that by design?
You're very observant. No, we actually did not color coordinate that at all,
It's like so cool.
Right.
It's like you're each in a separate part of Utah and the landscape, and you're like dressed for it in terms of color. And again, anybody who's listening, you got to go look for this beautiful art, but also for this unintentional coordination with the. Tell us about it, because Annika says that you bring your art into.
It's so cool. I wore my Warm West t-shirt, a custom shirt that Lukey and Kubi made for me, and they're so wonderful because I gave them colors, and they text me and they're like, it came out a really gross brown, you might want something different. And I was like, whatever you think colors go like Green Amendment inspired, just like do it. And so then they came out with this awesome shirt. And they have a bunch. So yeah, tell everyone about your art.
We like love art and like, you know, all sorts of things, but we kind of have beef with the current, I don't know if I want to call it the outdoor industry or like the fashion industry, but like what you have these amazing people undertaking these like incredible feats, you know, climbing mountains, skiing, flying. And then you have all these amazing outdoor brands, and they're just producing blacks, grays, dark blues. And we're talking like no color. We're talking every snow pants black, gloves black. And so
it even extends to, you know, there's so many people who live in vans, and you have these amazing, eccentric, one of a kind people, and they live in a white van.
In white vans. And everyone, the current thinking is that, you know, you live, it has to be discreet.
You want to blend in.
It has to be white. And none of these people blend in. They got solar panels on their roof. Like you know, everyone knows you live in it. But currently, there's this current kind of like people aren't really.
There's a stigma around it.
People aren't embracing. Aren't embracing color and sorts of and stuff like that. And so all of our individual kind of art businesses, you know, we do a lot of tie-dye t-shirts. And you know, tie-dye is a pretty popular thing, so I won't give ourselves credit for that. But for helmets, you know, one of our big cornerstones of our business is that we paint helmets for a variety of athletes, professional, semi-professional, amateur. And you know, people have, you know, just these incredible people, and they're just wearing a black helmet. And I think just kind of, I don't know if COVID has made people kind of rethink, you know, how they express themselves and what they do in their life. And one of the goals that we really have is that we want to kind of brighten up all these industries. You know, I don't want a company to sell just a black and a blue helmet. You know, I want to see colors. I want to see designs. And
So
that
you have a website where people go on and they order from you these special like helmets that you uniquely make for them?
So
or
most of our business is actually run through Instagram, which is pretty funny. But we do have a website. It's War in the West Co. at
Nope.
No
Sorry.
co.
Warinthewest.co.
warinthewest.co.
We couldn't get .com, so it's .co. But our thing is
really?
we just started, it's more of the custom thing. You know, we want people to like these colorful colors, and we thought that if we were making custom work for individual people, that the work would be a little bit more, and that
it'd be more meaningful to them, because instead of just buying a piece of art, they have a direct role in the creation of it, from choosing colors to images. And on our helmets, we love doing all sorts of things, but you can have anything you want there. You can have logos, you can have cute things, you can have colors, and
flowers, flags, mountains, like anything.
And so by doing customs, we've really opened up our art, because we've been learning a ton, taking the people's needs and requests. And
some helmet that I would never make because it looks green and it has a flower on it, for example, now I'm forced to make it. I have no choice, and ultimately it's better. It opens up our horizons, making custom work for people, and we give people what they want. So we make a lot of tie-dye shirts. We make these custom helmets for athletes. We paint people's adventure vehicles. So
that's one of our favorite things to do. Is like,
literally everyone told us, they said, don't paint your trailer. It'll draw too much attention. You'll regret it. And they were so wrong.
They were so
Your
wrong.
trailer's so cool. I was gonna say, literally, I've seen the pictures of it when you guys first posted. I was like, this is the coolest thing. And I low-key was like, wanted us to get some kind of vehicle or something, Mom, that these two could paint, because it's so awesome.
Well, I was gonna say, so what do we do? So does a person drive their vehicle to you? Do you hand glide to their vehicle?
We're very flexible.
Yeah.
So
we'll come to you.
We'll come to you. You can come to us. Just for the trailer and the vehicle painting, having that indoor space where you can do that is super important for it. And so it kind of depends. If the person who wants to get their thing painted, if they have indoor space that they can access, or if we need to rent it out, or if we have our own space here in Salt Lake City. But that's one of those things. And we've done a few projects. We painted our buddy's school bus. He lives in this beautiful converted white school bus.
We made it way more beautiful.
He was like, guys, he's like, I want some mountains on it, but like just
I think I saw you got that project. That was really cool.
He's like, I just want some blue mounds. And then by the end of it, we had made like a full color spectrum.
It was like 15 different colors.
Blues, greens, purples, reds. And we just displayed this mountain range like across one side of his bus.
And what kinds of helmets? So helmets for what's the range of sports that you've done helmets for?
For skiing, for flying, for skateboarding. We're trying to get into like more biking helmets. There's a huge culture in like mountain biking, and then in motocross and stuff like that, to have these big full face shield helmets. So we'll do any helmet pretty much.
We'll paint anything.
And do you guys do too? I feel like I saw you post one time that you kind of did like a big wall project somewhere. Was that like in someone's home, or you guys were just doing it for fun? Like,
it was in our friend's house, and she lived somewhere, and we didn't get permission from the landlord, but we just decided to put up this beautiful colored mural, and then we used we laid down tape before, and we painted over, and then you peel the tape, and you had these wonderful white lines that really accentuated all the colors. So we'll paint anything.
One of our favorite mediums to use though is spray paint. And so we've, our early days of spray painting, we're buying Home Depot,
Walmart,
$2 cans. And, we're going out and we're putting up some tags, in some urban areas. And, we weren't very good at it. I mean, borderline vandalism sometimes. And so we kind of took that because we'd been doing it for a little bit, and we decided to start, painting vehicles and trailers with spray paint. We paint our helmets with spray paint. And it's kind of this medium that's taken, we never thought that you could do so much with it. And so we're constantly learning how to use it, and, just kind of improving our own skill. And, there's no replacement for just like doing it over and over again. And so,
okay, so I'm trying to come up with like some sort of green amendment, something. I'm like, or just something for in my house. This sounds
we gotta get hockey helmets. We gotta get.
I was thinking
Viv and
about
I need our
hockey
hockey helmets done now.
I was thinking about that. They forced them to wear black and white. So we might need to get the hockey clubs to like, just like you, to reimagine what they could be.
And these helmets, like they've hooked on, like people see them, and we're at the flight park and there's like 4, 5, 6 people rocking these custom helmets, and like people notice it, and then they see a few people doing it who they like and respect, and they're like, oh wow, like I need to get my helmet done too. And so we've quickly picked up popularity with our product, but we haven't been able to keep up with demand because it just takes a lot of time to actually do this work. And so we're working on pivoting our business to still be involved with it, but to kind of take a different,
to change the way that we do it.
To change the way we do it.
Another thing we recently started doing, which was our long-term dream, was customizing paragliders. So same thing.
We've always wanted, these paragliders, these companies just make them a few, just a few colors, like,
and half of them are white.
And, everyone, kind of has a similar looking wing. And so it was always our dream to customize paragliders. And in the early days, we were thinking tie-dyeing wings, and like, I don't think that's going to happen. The process on that's too complicated, but we kind of found this own niche of being able to apply these large logos on it. And so traditionally, athletes have their sponsors on their wings, the companies that support them, the brands that support them, but we want to take it a step further. And so we want every person to be able to express themselves on their wings. So, you don't just look like your buddy with the same color, you can have your favorite image on it. You can have
a crab, if
you can have your
unicorn, if you want your business on there, we can just print it out, apply it on your wing, and it gives you more individuality. It's also safer to be able to individually identify different people in the air when everyone's flying on the same gear.
So amazing.
So you guys need to be thinking, because then when it's time for Utah to get a green amendment, we need you guys to be paragliding out there with a big.
We're gonna have a green amendment wing.
Maybe we just, every time we have a green amendment, like in New Mexico during the 30-day session, maybe you can hang glide over the roundhouse. I know, no, you wouldn't be able to do that, but anyway. We're going to come up with something, because you guys are you're amazing. I just want to tell you, you are amazing people.
Thank you.
You're amazing artists. Like, you're amazing visionaries. This has just been like so fascinating. What is it? Say it again. Show me the logo, Annika.
We're in the West.
West.co.
So Lukey and Kubi are also really great, Mom. They always post green amendment stuff. It warms my heart every time. They have the book.
We have to thank you guys, because this is enough about us, but the stuff that you guys are doing is absolutely incredible. And so we're super happy. I mean, we follow you guys. We got the book. We love, and this whole idea of a green amendment on like the state, that these states are kind of passing it on their own constitutions, and that it doesn't have to go to the federal level. It's just this like, it's an idea and a concept, Maya, I'm sure that you've created, and you've kind of been working through these last, how many years have you been like behind this movement? Can you give us a little background? 2014.
7 years after an amazing victory. And anyway, that's a whole nother story. You're kind. I won't go into it, but it's very kind. And I love that you really get the power and the importance of this pathway for environmental protection. It means the world to me. And really, we are going to find a way to weave the two of you into our whole national movement, because this is really superb. You're superb.
They are wonderful. So
they really are. You are superb people. This is going to be like probably the like one of the best episodes of all time.
Yeah.
I know. So boys, you have to tell people, because like you're saying too, because of your artwork and people being able to support you, you're able to do what you do and do this amazing work, and also, be involved in the environment and all that. So how do people find you? How do they support you? How do they, tell everyone.
The best way to follow us is through our Instagram
or Facebook
too.
Because like people like me, like Instagram is very painful for me to manage. So I can manage Facebook though.
I feel like our generation is this weird, like when we were in middle school, it's like everybody was on Facebook and then like
migrated away.
yeah, and now it's like Instagram, but like some people still are really into Facebook. So it's I was surprised to use Facebook. So keep going.
And so we on our Instagram and Facebook, we post our daily content is always centered around art, or it's centered around paragliding, being outside, and so that's kind of where we showcase all of our stuff. We do have a website too. It doesn't receive as much traffic as we would like, so maybe
we'll work on that.
Yeah.
warnthewest.co.
And that's for Instagram, Facebook, and the website are all warnthewest.co.
Instagram and Facebook are just Warn the West or warn.the.west. They should come up, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. Right. It just shows my social media ignorance that I presume the .co goes everywhere. So.
And if people want like a custom helmet or anything, do they just like shoot you?
Just hit us up. Yeah, the best way to get in contact with us is just to hit us up through either our website or through Instagram. And if you have questions, if you just want to talk to us, say what's up, we respond to everyone. So
very cool. And I just want to know, is your guys like ultimate goal? Are you gonna do like the tandem showing other people how to fly, or are you just kind of doing like your own thing and just living your best lives in the air?
Well, so like with everything, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication over, not months, but we're talking years of full dedication. The full commitment is really what gives you, like a fruitful career. And we can look at people around us and we're like, oh my God, they have amazing positions and they're so young and they're really living their best life. And, how did they get there? You never know how they got there. And it's always through some luck, a lot of hard work, and then just consistency and perseverance. So
we're kind of in that area where we're in the swing of things, and we just need to commit now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more years. And, just through that dedication, commitment. And then, like we make art every single day, and like we fly almost every single day too. And so just by repetition and learning is, the best way to, and we love these things. We decided to go all in on Warn the West, and like, this isn't like a part-time thing for us. Like, like we're committed, like in every possible way you could be committed. And people say that's
no, keep going.
And people say that's great. Like how else can you succeed without believing in the cause and believing you're going to achieve all this and having these dreams? And, sometimes you have to stroke your ego a little bit, or, you have to be realistic with yourself too. But
if you don't believe in yourself, then no one will.
Yeah, then no one will. So we're going to take it all the way, and we're not going to stop until we get there. And I'm sure it's the same thing with you guys.
It is. I do have to. One thing that struck me: Warn the West. Where did the name come from?
A lot of people ask us that, but
is it like you're warning the West that we're coming, man?
There's multiple interpretations of it. Some people interpret it just like that
because we moved from the East Coast to the West, we're warning the West, and we like to be
that's what I thought it was, just from like knowing Lukey in college. I was like, oh man, they're like going out west and they're just gonna like raise hell, and they're like, so warn the West we're coming.
Let's just say it's that. That's a better answer than what the actual one is, so it's okay.
All right, well, on the next episode when we have you, which we're gonna definitely have to do that again, we're gonna get out of you what the true story about the War in the West
you'll have to tune in next time.
Next time. That's right. And along the way, people have to follow you because you truly are amazing again, artists, environmentalists, and just all around people. Annika, what a grand idea to have Lukey and Kubi.
They're great. I only wish Kubi went to college with us, because I think it would have been great. You missed out. And I saw Kubi only every now and then with Lukey, but it's a good time. And I'm really glad that I got to, meet Lukey. And it's really been amazing to like see this journey you've been on. I mean, I really was like, when I saw the first photo, I was like, oh man, like what is this guy doing? Yeah. And then I was like, they're crazy. But then to see like where you've gone, it's just so cool. And I really think it's like, I'm jealous. I'm like your neighbor right now in New Mexico, and I've been like every time like, man, I should go out there and just like see what they're up to. But you just guys are doing like, it's just awesome. Like it's just great, and I can't say that enough. And
thank you guys so much for having us and for the kind words and support. And what we've really been blessed with is the amount of people who just believe in us and like no one tells us you're not going to make it. Like, no one does that. Everyone is like, oh, you guys got it. Like you got it. Like, you just gotta,
Totally.
you just
It's
got to do
important.
it.
I get
And
it from that lady over
We
there.
believe in you. We
Believe in you.
totally believe in you. You're doing amazing things, and you're going to even do more amazing things. And
Yeah,
I
we believe
just
in you
so
guys.
glad.
we believe in you guys a lot.
And in the green amendments, and you guys are inspirational, the work that you guys
Wow.
very
Yeah.
selflessly do for the betterment of everyone.
Yeah.
And hopefully that, we'll see if New Mexico does something in your guys'
Maybe.
favor
Favor
soon.
soon,
Yeah.
Number 4, we've got PA, Montana, and just recently New York. So maybe New Mexico will be number 4.
Congratulations on New
next
York.
year.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, we worked hard. Well, I think from one dynamic duo to another dynamic duo, it has been great to listen to you guys. Thank you for coming on. Everybody should go follow Warren the West, buy some of their products. It's so amazing. And I'm just like looking forward to seeing everything you guys are going to do. And yeah, we'll definitely have to, that you're hooked into Green Amendment art now. Like, she's going to find something for you to do. So you should just start thinking about it now, because it's going to happen.
We've already been thinking about it.
Oh, good. We want to definitely team up. We want to team up and come up with something that advances your beautiful art and vision and cause, and our beautiful vision and cause, which is
Absolutely.
artistic in its own way, artistic for Mother Earth. So
Exactly. Well, thanks, guys. Go back to all your great stuff. Have fun flights, and we'll talk to you soon for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you really much
Bye.
for having us.
This
Have
has
a
been
good
great.
one.
You too.
You too.
All right. So that was Lukey and Kubi from Warren the West.
Whoa, wow. That was really off the charts, superb and exciting. I know it's literally been an hour and it doesn't feel like it. I felt like I could have just kept talking to them. I really want to encourage people to go, look at the website. If you, want an interesting gift, no matter what time of year, whether you're talking about holiday season, you're talking about birthdays, you're talking about, any holiday. I mean, this is like, this is something really special to consider. Is there anybody I know who needs a helmet or needs a beautiful shirt?
I mean, I was
Annika
serious.
has?
I was like, I want a hockey helmet. I think it's cool. I was even about to message them being like, can I get another shirt? Because I love this one so much. And I'm scared that it's getting I don't want it to fade.
When they were talking, I was thinking about bicycle helmets, right? Whether you're talking about a child, a teenager, an adult, a professional, somebody who's bike riding professionally, amateurish, or just likes to get out of doors. That's a really unique kind of thing. Sounds like you'll have to be on a little bit of a list because they are so great that, they are doing it individually and it takes some time, but
it is really different.
What a special something for anybody.
Well, and I really like too, when they were talking about how everything is black and blue and white, and I never thought about it, but I always noticed how unique their stuff was. And I just feel again, it's just on par with this whole nature is this explosion of color and this beautiful unique thing, and everywhere is different. And really, when I've seen their helmets, no two are alike, and you really get you get something special. And it was they had this little palette, and they're pick 3 colors, and I did. And they messaged for the shirt, and they messaged me and they're like, Annika, it's we did a test and it just doesn't look good. And I did say, I was just put some colors that make you think of the Green Amendment, because they know about it. And like I said, they share our stuff. And I got this awesome shirt, and I have friends who know Lukey from Ithaca who have the shirts as well. And none of our shirts, no two are alike. It's just really thoughtful, and they put a lot of hard work into it. So you're going to get literally something you're not going to find anywhere else.
And what I really loved about them is, as you said, their art and their dedication and their vision comes from a love of nature and a love of experiencing nature in all of its many facets. I really learned a lot. I learned a lot about the warming of the earth and the jet stream, and how things work, and how the climate crisis really is affecting every aspect of people's lives. And this is just a different way. People who are trying to get out recreationally to enjoy nature are having that experience damaged. And when you have that experience damaged, it has psychological implications. It has economic implications for the industry. And it is taking from nature and taking from people all the joy and beauty that healthy, clean nature can provide. So, and that clearly shines through from their hearts, through their art, through their work, and how they talk about it and how much they know. So that was really, really fascinating, Annika. And I really, again,
good
appreciate your thinking about it.
I mean, I really, the times that I had conversations with Lukey in college and we would pass each other, I have this really funny night where Lukey and I got roped into doing like an owl study together. We didn't even know that we both did it. And then he texted us like, do you want to just like, I'm doing this owl study. Should we just go together? I was like, oh yeah. And we spent the night catching saw-whet owls that were endangered to be tagged. And like Lukey and I were just out there and we were helping put up nets. And it was just like, even though Lukey and I didn't hang out all the time, every time I chatted with him, he really had such a passion for the environment and he was very serious about everything he did. So when he and his brother started this, I really was like, they're gonna like go gun ho on this. And it really has been great to watch, and knowing who he is and just seeing his dedication to it. I mean, and Kubi's as well. I just didn't know Kubi that well before, but the two of them. And I love too, the whole time they're kind of like riffing off each other. I'm like, this is such a twin vibe. But it's just been great to watch. And I think if anybody who can support them in any way, like go check them out. They are so unique, so wonderful.
Yeah. So they're warnthewest.co. And then of course, if you want to support the work of Annika and I trying to save the world, greenamendments.org, www.greenamendments.org. You can go there, get engaged, sign a letter, sign a petition, find a way to get involved, send a letter to the editor that spreads the word, or you can make a donation. And if you live on the East Coast and you love the beautiful Delaware River, www.delawareriverkeeper.org is a way to get involved and get supportive. Delaware Riverkeeper Network is on the leading edge of so many issues, including getting PFAS contamination addressed in a meaningful way, stopping fracking, stopping pipelines, really leading the way, not just within the 4 states of the Delaware River watershed, but nationally on many, many key issues. So we thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying the hour.
And very excited to announce that we officially have a Green Jeans Instagram. Go to @GreenJeansPod. And we are on Instagram. Of course, follow Green Amendments and Delaware Riverkeeper on Instagram. But if you want to DM us on there, maybe you want to be a guest, maybe you have some thoughts on topics, @GreenJeansPod on Instagram. We are working on it.
So and I can't wait to share Lukey and Kubi's art.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we're on Instagram and they're on Instagram and on Facebook, we'll be able to also link people in to the incredible guests that we had today and incredible people that they are. So with that, Annika, I think we better sign off or people are going to be like, what? I got stuff to do.
Thank you for coming on for a very unique episode, everybody. And we'll see you next week on